with part of the AAPRP, and I'm here with my comrade Jamari, who's also a member of the AAPRP. Jamari, you want to say hi to the fam out there?
Hello, how everybody doing out there?
Awesome, awesome. To the All African People's Revolutionary Party, we're a Pan African organization. We exist in Africa and other countries and all over this country as well. And what we are working toward is a one unified socialist Africa. And so we are happy that you joined us. Today, we are going to have a really great show. I'll talk about that later, who's going to be on it. But what we want to do is make sure before we start, we do land acknowledgement. We recognize that we are on indigenous land and this country is stolen land. We are in solidarity with our indigenous relatives having their land back. And also, we fight for our land back in Africa. Today, we want to call in an ancestor. So we always call in an ancestor during the show. And today, because the show is about organizing, we're going to be calling in Ella Baker today. And Ella Baker stands for so many principles of organizing, relationship building, revolutionary work, building leaders to do this work, how it's not focused on one individual, how it's focused on a collective vision. So today we're bringing in Ella Baker to be in the space with us today. Today's show, we have our comrades, Julia and Sheldon from the Pueblo Action Alliance. We are so excited for this show where we're going to be hearing about from a Pueblo perspective of what organizing principles are, what they're doing. Folks can know how to get involved and support their work. So let's welcome Sheldon and Julia with Pueblo Action Alliance to the space today with us.
Hey everyone.
Hi everybody.
Hi, comrades.
Morning.
Thank you for that land acknowledgement and also calling in some ancestral wisdom. I really appreciate that practice.
Before we get started, would you all like to introduce yourselves and tell a little bit about Pueblo Action Alliance, and then we'll jump into some questions?
Okay. Lydia.
Cool. Amaraho pa isang tiriya sa kiwa masata.
Oh, Sheldon, you might still be on mute.
Oh, cool. How's it now?
I can hear you.
You can hear me? We're good? Yeah? Cool. Awesome. Hello everyone. My name is Sheldon Tenorio. I'm a creative strategist with Pueblo Action Alliance. Really glad to be here.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Julia Bernal. I'm the Environmental Justice Director for PAA, and I'm tuning in from San Diego Pueblo. So thanks for having me today, and Sheldon as well. Just a quick little bit about us. We're a Pueblo-centric grassroots organization organizing out of Tewa territory known as present-day Albuquerque, New Mexico. We have been a functioning organization for about 4 years now. Our 4th year anniversary is coming up here pretty soon, so that's pretty exciting. And we organize throughout the state of New Mexico, really focusing on educating, mobilizing, and organizing our Pueblo people to achieve long-term goals like indigenous liberation, sovereignty, and self-determination. So we focus a lot on the issues that are most important to Pueblo people, like sacred site and sacred place protection, liberating our lands and territories and waters from colonial occupation and rule, and also building solidarity, international solidarity with the entire indigenous global struggle. And so that's a little bit about us, but if you want to get a little bit more into what we do, visit our website at puebloactionalliance.org.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I just want to be transparent. I'm having some technology issues, so I can't fully hear what Sheldon's saying. So it's kind of mute for me. So I apologize for that. But thank you so much for that introduction. We'll just jump into the questions. So excited again to learn from you all. We've been in so many spaces together, and just to hear about your work is really beautiful. Thank you for all that you do for the Indigenous community. The first question that we have is, what is Pueblo Action Alliance? What's your approach to organizing?
Okay. Me and Sheldon divided up the questions, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this started. So we truly believe that Pueblo people are just severely underestimated. I mean, we have a very intact and vivid spiritual and protected history that encompasses shared values amongst the 20 Pueblo nations in New Mexico and our sister Pueblo in Texas. And what I mean by that is that we share a very intrinsic system of traditional core values, and be using that to our advantage when it means to mobilize and organize our people to show up for the things that are most important to us, like I had mentioned before. We believe in long-term goals and long-term visions. We have, like I said, a history, a rich history on resistance and revolution from our own people. So this past Monday, August 10th, was the 340th anniversary of the Pueblo Revolt that happened in 1680. This is an amazing, incredible example of mass organization of Pueblo people. This revolution was to liberate ourselves from Spanish conquest. And, it took a long time. It took like at least 10 years of organizing the Pueblos and other ally nations, indigenous nations, to create plans, strategies, and tactics to overthrow Spanish occupation on our homelands, because for a long time, colonialism had been enforcing us to stop practicing our traditional ways, our dances, our songs, things that we believe not only benefit us but benefit the world. Everything that we do spiritually is for everybody. So we've been learning from this example, from this revolution, continuing forward. We always like to say that we're an extension of this revolt. We're an extension of 1680, and that the Pueblo Revolt never ended, and we are that continuation of the revolutionary spirit in Pueblo territory. And so the only way that we believe in achieving revolution is from the bottom up. Top up not only is a way to reform the system, but it's reforming a system that was intended to kill, displace indigenous people, and also enslave our African relatives. So the only way in which that we believe we can achieve revolution is from the bottom up, and that's literally the core of our communities here. It's about community, it's communal ways of living. It's not about me, it's about everybody here. And so already having those values in place really is an advantage for us in organizing our people to achieve liberation. But probably I think the most important approach to our organizing strategies is building trustworthy and meaningful relationships with our Pueblo people, and as well as with other indigenous nations in the global struggle. And this is including Africa. There has been a extremely bloody and manipulative history of colonialism up until this point between indigenous nations and the imperious settler state. And so knowing that there was like the foundation of the United States, or United Snakes, is built on the foundation of distrust, of genocide, of enslavement. And so how can you reform a foundation that is inherently evil and has perpetuated atrocities to many indigenous peoples all over the globe? So a very important part of our organizing is building a foundation of trust. And in essence, it's creating a system that is based on values that we encompass, that we believe in. And I think that there is a lot to learn from Pueblo people, sharing our organizing strategies and tactics with everybody here today.
Thank you so much, Julia, for sharing that and really elevating how how you all are doing continuation work and what's happening like in the Pueblo revolt, and how we're continuing the work of our ancestors and the bottom up organizing. In the comments, there are people saying that too, like really valuing bottom up organizing. And thank you for putting a magnifying glass around like reform work and how that continues and perpetuates harm. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Jamari, who's going to help with the second question. And unfortunately, Sheldon, I'm going to have to watch it later on to hear your answer, but appreciate you, comrade.
All right. And question number 2, what are some of the initiatives you are organizing on, and what are you trying to achieve?
Okay, thank you, Jamari. I was in charge of this question also, so I promise y'all will get to hear from Sheldon after I'm done. Organizing. I mean, from the beginning, we had really organized through an environmental lens. So there was, a lot of organizing efforts to protect our cultural resources, to protect water. I mean, the inception of Pueblo Action Alliance did come out of the Standing Rock movement, which was a movement to protect water and also tribal sovereignty. And sacred places was always the center of our organizing. But, as we continue to learn, and me, myself personally, I've only been an organizer for maybe 4 years now, because my background was like in conservation and water resources. But as I continue to learn more about like environmental racism and climate crisis and all the other types of isms, they're all related to the capitalist economy and the evils that economy brings to frontline communities and indigenous communities. And that the fossil fuel economy, the oil and gas industry, that it has a very violent presence here in the state of New Mexico, is an extension of colonialism. And so if we're going to be anti-colonialism, then we have to also be anti-capitalist. Being on the show, I've learned so much from AAPRP New Mexico, and one of the statements from Kamari Turi, is that how you say it?
Kwame Ture.
There you go. He said it so bluntly that this capitalist system is backwards and it's stupid, and it will commodify anything. It will commodify the air. It will commodify the water. It will also commodify the knowledge that indigenous students are cultivating throughout their experience in college or whatever, And so that sort of perspective and worldview does align a lot with Pueblo Action Alliance and the campaigns that we have shaped, in order to again mobilize and organize our people on indigenous liberation. And so we have been really organizing a lot of our resources in the Greater Chaco protection fight. So protecting Greater Chaco is a region in the northwestern corner of New Mexico, which has a lot of our sacred sites, and is being completely encroached by oil and gas productivity. And so the fossil fuel economy is an economy that we never consented to, and so really learning about the history of colonialism and capitalism up until this point is going to help us achieve long-term vision and goals. with that campaign, we've also been educating our people on the violence of oil and gas, whether that's environmental impacts, whether that is social impacts like missing and murdered Indigenous people, or which is like which is an epidemic in itself, but also learning about how the capitalist economic structure will commodify resources like air. So we're seeing a lot of like carbon pricing and carbon tax initiatives here in New Mexico that is a false solution to mitigate climate change. And even now with this green wave, it's going to perpetuate green capitalism. So if not even worse from before, the exploitation of resources will continuously harm Indigenous and frontline communities, because everybody wants that solution now. Everybody wants to figure out how to stop temperatures from increasing. Everybody wants an electric car, but will turn a blind eye when they see forced labor on African children. So we can't forget that resource exploitation is to fuel capitalism, whether that's for green technologies or not. And so we are really trying to unveil a lot of the false solutions that this green kind of economy or this climate change movement is perpetuating, because can't forget about the people and the communities. It's not about climate change, it's about climate justice. And so those are the types of campaigns that we've been really organizing on. But particularly this year, one thing that we have really learned is that we are not ready and we are not prepared for crisis. COVID-19 has been one of those, again, pandemics that has severely hit Indigenous communities here in New Mexico. We've seen that with Navajo Nation. And then even at a smaller level, we've seen that happen in a lot of the Pueblos here in New Mexico. And so learning this important lesson, and Sheldon will get a little bit into our mutual aid efforts in later on, but it's really forced us and actually led us into this conversation of like what community defense is and how we can organize our people on the basis and foundation of community defense, because community defense can achieve numerous things. It can empower the community to exercise their sovereignty and self-determination. And there are many examples across the Indigenous global struggle that proves that community defense can work and has actually removed the settler state from their territories. It can also liberate lands and waters and sacred places and sites from colonial rule, management, and consumption. Because as we know, colonialism and capitalism is a system of consumption. It can also reclaim Indigenous languages and traditional societal structures that embody and uplift community voice. Again, bottom-up organizing, so much to the point where it's the people who elect a leader to be their voice, because it's collective sharing and collective knowledge. And then also it could be organized on a basis of demands set collectively by the community, again, bottom up. So we've seen many examples, again, across the Indigenous global struggle that have used community defense as its basis of organizing, and it has proven to work. And so this is something that PAA has been really intentional and thoughtful in, and we actually even changed our mission statement to include community defense. And so those are some of the campaigns. If there's many, we do a lot of different stuff. So, but Sheldon will get into that now. But those are just some of the campaigns that we've been working on.
Thank you so much, Julia. And I also just want to say, like, thank you for also giving us language, and not using terminology such as climate change, but using climate justice. That's really important for us to know. And as allies who work in solidarity in that space. And then also like really sharing with us about like what fossil fuels is doing and how the consuming and the exploitation harms, and how like you're doing a lot of things on land, about land, water, and air. And so like, thank you, because like you were talking about Kwame Ture, like capitalism is just a clear form of destruction, whether that's through exploitation, land, air, or water. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
Sheldon, can you talk about some of the Indigenous Impact Community Care Initiative that you all are doing around mutual aid, and what does that look like?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Julia, as well. Every time I'm on a presentation or something with Julia, I forget that I'm supposed to be presenting and I'm just sitting there listening. So yeah, just again, like Julia was saying, as we all know, a lot of us know, COVID-19 hitting, it was super unexpected. We were really unprepared. And a lot of our work, a lot of our efforts shifted into mutual aid efforts. We partnered with City Sovereignty, and basically what we all kind of came up with, what our efforts shifted into was mask distribution. From the very beginning, we started out with our ceremonial action, and we wanted to just be able to communicate with our communities that we were thinking of them, that we wanted to showcase how to return and be grounded in this time, right? Pueblo people, we were super close knit, super tight with each other, and it was just a way, again, for us to remind ourselves that we got to be grounded, we got to return to our traditional core values and keep those in mind, and that's what's going to get us through it. And so with that, we started again with the mass distribution, and that really broke down into a lot of different things in a lot of different ways. Julia and PAA say this all the time: we're small, but we're mighty. And it was a lot. I'll be the first to say it was a lot of work. And we started out with like getting community needs assessment out, and we were able to offer 3 different types of masks. They were KN95, surgical, and cloth masks. Again, we partnered with City Sovereignty, and we literally just kind of hit the ground running. We were like calling folks, we were emailing folks, we were trying to see what the needs were, how many quantities are needed, what types of masks are needed. And from there, we were able to fill that and like get these orders in, or a little ways through after everything we were learning, like constantly learning as we were going. We were able to like put out a call out for folks to even make masks, and we were calling them mask warriors. Like sewing masks, different people in our communities, just really building on those relationships, like Julia was saying, those trust relationships that we had established before COVID. And that really like is what helped us accomplish a lot of these things, a lot of getting the numbers of the masks out there to each community. We were able to cover a numerous amount of communities and getting masks to them. A couple of examples were like, even where I'm from, Kiwa, otherwise known as Santo Domingo, Pueblo, I went up there maybe even about 3 times as well to drop off masks to even different departments, like our health clinic, to the governor's office, to the forestry department. And every time we went there, it was really cool because I was able to like explain who we were as PAA, and even myself within that community, talk about like the work that we do and how we want to help and how we're committed to helping our community. So that was even really just cool to see and interact with folks. But again, like a lot of that work took us like on the phone, talking to people in the community, getting the needs assessment, figuring out how many masks, figuring out time frames of how long it'd take to get those masks out there. Even like utilizing the post offices and things like that to ship masks out. We were able to again cover like a majority of the Pueblos, and then even extending that work and that distribution to our relatives in the Dene territory, in Apache territory. And overall, mass distribution is close to like 32,000 guaranteed. I don't have the exact amount of number, but it's close to 32,000, probably even more. And that was all in the course of maybe about 2 months or so. That with that timeline being about around 2 months or so. Yeah, and again, it was just those relationships, being able to have organized and done the work in a way that it's trusted within our communities, so that when we reach out to folks or that we hear folks and what their needs are, they trust us to get those masks there. They trust us to help, and it's beautiful, like, yes, COVID taught us a lot of different things. We were unprepared, the readiness, but also it helped us realize that, like, we really need to get to bottom up organizing. We really need to get down to how close knit our communities can be, and that vision, that possibility of what can be accomplished. Like 32,000 masks, like, that's a huge number with the staff of like 4 or 5 of us. It's just amazing, and it feels really good to be a part of that, and continue those relationships now as well. It's not a one-time thing, and that's the commitment there as well, which again leads me into like the next point, of just the mass distribution itself. We were able to, after getting out all the masks, distribute it to the different communities. We then moved into doing like community mass giveaways, which we partnered with other local organizations as well in Tewa territory, northern New Mexico, which is the Three Sisters Collective and Tewa Women United. And we had a mass giveaway there, in their territory, in the Tewa territory up there. And then we had another one here in Tewa territory, Albuquerque, New Mexico, at the Southwest Organizing Project, and our office is that as well. And so we were able to do that and just distribute masks to our community, to folks who came out. It was a really good time, it was a really good day, just again, interacting with folks, letting them know that we're here, that we're committed, and this is out of the bases of our framework and our structure, our organizing structure, and this is why we're here. So we broke it up into a few phases. The first phase was the mass distribution, the community mass giveaway, and then phase 2, the next phase, is moving into putting together and delivering and getting out care packages, like health hygiene care packages, to our unsheltered relatives, which again speak to like the relationships that we have, Seeding Sovereignty, a couple folks, the homies at Insurgents as well. We're going to start moving into phase 2, and that's just getting out those hygiene, health products and care packages to our unsheltered relatives, which is like water, snacks, masks, the towelettes, the hand sanitizers, all of those things, just to help out more. So that's phase 2, and we're leading into that right now. Even using like supply runs and things like that. Like today, even our homies, Reyes, co-worker Reyes, and our partner with Seeking Sovereignty, Aaron, they're literally buying supplies today. And we're still in there, we still come together. We put those packages together ourselves, and then we take them out ourselves too, So it's great. It's great work. Again, we're small but mighty.
Thank you for all your help and all your work in that field. And Monique, we're moving on to the next question.
Oh, I got to listen. I had to think smarter. I went to Facebook
Hey,
and I was able to watch it.
nice.
32,000 masks. That is
Mm-hmm,
massive, like organizing in like
mm-hmm,
pueblos here up northern New Mexico. Thank you for the community defense work you're doing. Like, that's saving lives. I know we also collaborate and volunteer with mutual aid. And I
mm-hmm,
think we got over 1,000 masks that we got to pass out to community here in
mm-hmm.
Albuquerque. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So moving on to the next question. How are you guys working to connect international struggles to the struggles of your people, and why? And for example, the work you do in the anti-war coalition and for Cuba solidarity.
Cool. Awesome. Again, we split up these questions, so I'll be able to answer that one. Um, so with the anti-war coalition, the way we're able to connect international struggles, it's in our vision, it's in our mission statement, and that's solidarity. Building solidarity through international indigenous struggles. One of them being at the anti-war coalition. Again, when we think about imperialism, when we think about colonialism, settler colonialism, think about resource extraction and how that breaks down into this disease that is colonialism, this disease that is imperialism, and all of the symptoms that come from it, right? And how that then is like connected in different places through either whether that being like companies who are doing the extractive resources, industries running the industries, funders who are funding these companies, even routes where waste is taken, where it's manufactured, where there's research going on. All of these things connect through different companies and funders, and it goes far as like in again in Africa, the resource extraction happening there, the exploitation of labor happening there, and like even like the minerals being used and taken out, even like the microchips that we use like in our phones and stuff like that being taken out of there. The companies there are the same companies that are doing that everywhere else around the world. And so being able to like think of how this all connects, think of like the political analysis, the power mapping, and all of the breakdowns of like who is who, what are they doing, who's even benefiting from that. And that's again, it's not us, it's not POCs, it's not the communities that are being impacted first. We're left with all of like the destruction. We're left with all of those impacts, and the people benefiting from it are these like capitalists, are these colonial states, are these colonial mindsets, these imperialist mindsets, and even the acts of which they move in. So being able to like just break those down, and through the anti-war coalition, I've even learned a lot myself. I've learned so much just like in terms of like companies and funding and even routes. Like here, for example, in northern Mexico, we have the Los Alamos National Laboratory, where the bomb was built. And even then, from there, we think about like research and development, how long that took, what are they up to, and then what is the route that they take, and what is the route that they use. One of the I don't want to say cool, one of the cooler things in terms of like popular education that we want to be emphasizing as well through the anti-war coalition is a map that we've created, and all of the research that we've done is on that map, where you can go to it and it's color coded, where you can see research and development, and you see all these facilities pop up on the map, and then you see the routes and the waste and where that is. So you literally get to see this power chain of where it starts, who's funding it, what companies are involved, where does it go, how does it get used, and then what's left after that, like the impacts again, right? So like you think about the resource extraction going on in the greater Chaco region, and we think about like the impacts being left. Folks have lung disease. There's a methane cloud, that region in the Four Corners area. You think about the health effects. You think about the effects of the lands, the water, and all of these things are mapped out, right? So then from there, again, like I said, I was able to learn a lot too with the anti-war coalition, and even just being able to like see that, because we can talk about facts, we can talk about numbers all day, we can talk about the research all day, but when it comes to actually like seeing it, you're thinking, oh wow, like this is connected here, this is connected there, and as well, even for like connecting to international struggles, we all really face a lot of the same issues. And if we can continue to build that solidarity and come together with that knowledge, with that information sharing, we then arm ourselves that much more, because we're all fighting the same beast. We live in the belly of the beast right here, so-called US, so-called America, right? Turtle Island. We live here. So us knowing the impact, we have a lot to offer when it comes to that knowledge sharing, that solidarity building, because then we come together, we can create coalitions, we can work together, we can see what's being done here, we can see what wins have happened, and maybe some of those methods can be applied here. It's going to look different for sure for different communities, for different regions, because the struggles may vary in those terms. But also, it's like, we gotta be able to share that. We got to be able to speak to one another because we're all in it. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us doing our part the same way it takes all of us doing our part in community defense and mutual aid efforts. It's going to take all of us in taking on this beast, this machine, and that's literally like the breakdown of what it means to be able to to be able to put forth those efforts and understanding things. Because I knew for a while, growing up, I knew for a while there was something wrong, but it wasn't until I started working with PAA or organizing or teaching myself, or reading a lot more. It was like, okay, these are the ways in which it happens. This is who the key players are. Again, with the Anti-War Coalition, that's what we've been able to find out. That's what we've been able to put out there. We've had a couple teachings on the past few months before COVID-19. We since then moved to online. We moved to Zoom and doing teachings as well. We're going to be having another one come up pretty soon, but a lot of it's focused around popular education and getting that information out there, and then going from there and having like panels, having discussions, and having teachings and presentations as well. And that also leads me into work with that we're doing with Cuba. Again, it's building solidarity is very important to us. If you check out our website, puebloactionalliance.org, under solidarity, there's a solidarity statement as well, and that kind of breaks down like our emphasis, our approach, again, if you will, in terms of like how we want to build solidarity, the way in which we move, and why it's important to us. One of those solidarity efforts being Cuba, internationalism with Cuba, and that nation-to-nation building. For us, for our region, it's building that nationhood, that self-determination, that sovereignty. So again, like I said earlier, knowing that we have a lot to learn, but also knowing through our perspective that we have a lot to offer as well. And we've seen that. Me and Julia and I were able to travel to Cuba and see that firsthand, and see what works. Cuba is one of the first places to admit different things that they could have done better, and that's what it takes when we think of long-term struggle. When we think of building that solidarity, to be able to self-critique yourself is one of the biggest emphasis, or one of the biggest key roles that you could have and be doing and practicing, right? And so we got to see that. Then we got to sit and chat and build with different folks, and just learn about the revolution, learn about Cuba's revolution, learn about how they're defending it now. Think about the unity that it took, and a lot of that reminded me of like the 1680 Pueblo revolt, because you think 10 years, it took 10 years to plan, much like the Zapatistas, 10 years before they came out from the mountains and said that we're going to do this, we have this, and again, like that, like all of the work that we've been doing since COVID, like the mutual aid efforts led us into like adding community defense to our mission. When we think about why, it's because the community defense covers a lot of it. It covers multiple things, multiple layers, from what does it look like? What does it look like in other places around the world? What could it look like here? Can those models be utilized here? And again, it's going to be different, right? Like it's going to be different from community to community, from region to region, and just being able to make those connections and see it and be able to learn and break certain things down. It was just amazing, and it really reminded me again of like why that importance is there, why it's important to be able to connect those struggles, because we face a lot of the same issues. Colonialism being that disease, all of the symptoms that come from it, it affects a lot of different regions in multiple ways. And so when we're able to figure that out, it's like, okay, cool, we're arming ourselves to be able to take that on strategically, very strategically and effectively as well.
Thank you so much, Sheldon. We look forward to more of your teach-ins. I think that's the first time I had heard about Relentless Pursuit, is being at an anti-war coalition teach-in. So like that information is so important. Like even me, I never even knew about the realness of Cuba until about 3 years ago, right? And so just the learning that's so important, and how we're in this armed struggle together. Thank you for sharing that. And you've touched bases a little bit on this last question, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience to see if they have any questions or comments. But the last question we have is, how do you all show up for African liberation?
You can keep going, Sheldon.
Okay, cool.
And then
Yeah.
I'll state what I think after.
Awesome. That's good. Yeah. What I was leading up to too, just even earlier, was that solidarity between African and indigenous peoples, and how vital that is to liberation. Julia says that all the time. Liberation is for all. Indigenous liberation is for all. And how do we show up for African liberation? A lot of it for me breaks down to that knowledge sharing, to teaching myself those histories. Even when we think about police brutality, and how that started out with like the slave raids and the slave patrol, and how that came about, connecting that historical context with the historical context of indigenous people as well, and how we've been brutalized since first colonial contact, and being able to again work together and really build out solidarity in a way that we can then learn about these struggles, learn about these fights, and break it down, and then show up for one another, much like we have here in our region, in Tiwa territory. And being able to just learn, like again learning all of that information, and then having that as well, just like build ourselves up, right? And then that information exchange between one another, between struggles. A lot of our history isn't written down, and it's like, well, we have to share that. It's oral history, it's oral tradition, and more the way that we get to share and build with one another, more and more we're going to be well equipped to continue to show up for each other, and really truly create that solidarity and defend each other in struggles, and move towards that liberation. Like Julia said it earlier, it's not about reform, it's about abolishment. That's how we see it. That's how I see it. I always say we because like PA, but I see it in that way, because look at the examples of history, and what's been done to us, to our communities, even the displacement of African people, and then the exploitation of the history of what we've learned. It's that system wasn't built for us; it was imposed on us, and us knowing that we have that power, we have. Julia says that we have that birthright, to be who we are, to defend ourselves, to live in a way that we practice self-determination, and that sovereignty. So it's just, again, just building, always building in a way that speaks to who we are as people, speaks to who we are and how we want to live, and live freely, our own. We have our destiny in our own hands,
Yeah, thank you. So just to reiterate, the question is like, how do I show up for African liberation? How do we show up for African liberation? And I've learned so much from the Pan-African liberation movement. I mean, I'm utterly indebted to the lifelong work that Pan-Africanists have committed to, over time. There is a continuation and a legacy of Pan-Africanism that is very similar to the legacy and of Pueblo people and the work that we've put out up until this point. And one thing I've really learned is the power that one is able to organize based on values. And by laying these foundations of values like respect, consent, trust, and again, even our birthright to protect our homelands, our birthright to enjoy living on our homelands is already creating a system and creating organization based on values of righteousness and justice. And so, for me, it's one thing to physically show up, and even attending events like this, it's one thing to do that, but it's another thing to truly believe in African liberation, and that African liberation is also Indigenous liberation and vice versa. And so showing up for African liberation is also aligning, with the African liberation struggle, with the global Indigenous struggle. And in essence, it's the same. It's to obtain our land back. It's to obtain our water back. It's to obtain our birthright to enjoy being Indigenous, to enjoy being African without any sort of colonial European occupation of the mind, body, and soul. And so that's what it means for me. Showing up for Pan-Africanism is believing in it full-heartedly. And so I support the mission of the All African, All African People Revolutionary Party, our mission, and embody that and even learn and encompass that in our own organization as well. And that we don't need white settlers to show up for us or to do for what we can do for ourselves. And that is something that I've definitely learned from all of y'all here. So again, I'm indebted to the information and the knowledge that I have learned from the Pan-African movement.
Thank you all so much. We truly, truly appreciate being in solidarity with you all, organizing and learning from one another. So there's a couple comments that are here as well as a question. And you might have just, you were speaking to one of the questions. Daphne says, I learned so much from you. It allows me to reflect and think about my daily practices of care of each other. A specific question. Oh, I just lost it. But it's not popping up on my popping up right now. But the question was, oh, here it is. How can we support Pueblo Action Alliance, Community Defense, and All African People's Revolutionary Party? Like, how do Europeans support? As a European, how can they support community defense of Pueblo Action Alliance?
Sheldon, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to answer? How do you feel?
I was gonna just bring up like the Honor Native Land Tax, like the settler support initiative as well. I'll say this: it's not up to oppressed people, POC, Black and Brown folks, African Indigenous people, to be able to again lay out those steps of what settlers should be doing. It's up to settlers to educate other settlers about struggles, settlers talking to other settlers about how they can help. One of those ways actually to help though is the Honor Native Land Tax, honornativelandtax.org, and from there there's either monthly contributions or a annual contribution, and that goes to our organizations, the All African People's Revolutionary Party, Pueblo Action Alliance. There's a couple more organizations on there as well. And
the Red Nation.
The Red Nation, I believe, the Red Nation is on there as well. And those contributions go directly into our organizing efforts, go directly into everything that we are working on, that we're involved in. But I emphasize the honornativelandtax.org. You can visit that website, learn about it, and contribute to that as well. But also just being able to remind yourselves of the territories that you are in, and being mindful of that, and going further and thinking of what organizations are here, who's leading those organizations. Is it Is it indigenous folks? Is it African folks? Is it the people of that land who are able to be carrying out that work? And just really finding that information and educating as well, and then moving in a respectful manner.
I think we indigenous African people, we can speak for ourselves. We can do for ourselves. We can do for ourselves. We don't have to wait for, white settlers to help support us. And so supporting our work is also uplifting our work, uplifting, the events that are going on, uplifting, our voices, and also allowing, not allowing, but following the lead of indigenous and African people, following those that are the most oppressed. I mean, that is the only way that we will achieve our goals. This is our land base. This is our homeland. We have the right to have a say-so over what happens on our territory. We believe in consent, so we do not consent to the settler violence happening on Tiwa territory. We don't consent to the extractive colonialism happening on indigenous territories. And so, again, reiterating what Sheldon said, it's very important for the settler to educate themselves on the territories for which they occupy and what they could do to support indigenous and African liberation movements on the territories in which they occupy. I think that would probably be a good start. But again, we aren't asking, or we don't believe that, we full-heartedly believe that we have the solutions, we have the innovation, and we have the creativity to come up with solutions, economies, and structures that are meant for us. And don't support reform.
Definitely.
Support abolition.
I'm going to piggyback real quick on
Hell
Julia. Yeah, definitely. Completely agree with everything you all said. Because we center the people who are most impacted, we do know what the solutions are to help our communities. And, we even have a workshop in AAPRP, a training about We Saved Ourselves. And when I watched that, I learned so much about our resistance, our continued resistance since our people were stolen from Ghana, and how we're continuing that work, and also the continued resistance that our indigenous relatives have had since this land has been stolen as well. And so I just want to reiterate that we do have the ability to save ourselves, and definitely they can make financial contributions there, as well as really educating their own people and organizing their own people. So I just want to say, echoing everything you're saying, I'm fist bump, yes.
Abolish it all.
Abolish it all, burn it down.
And then the other thing is you all saying about abolishment. So abolishment, what we see now is in this space, abolishment is being talked about nationwide, right? And so across this country. And so this is not a time and space to be talking about reform at all. We've seen reform practice never, ever, ever work. It actually caused more harm to indigenous relatives, to African people who are African. And so thank you for elevating it. We're going to be wrapping up this segment, this interview with you all. We're so appreciative. Is there anything that you would like to say to the people before you all sign off?
Just a big thank you, Herkem Shim, to everybody that tuned in. Thank you to those that support Pueblo Action Alliance and also support the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Our work very much aligns to each other. Also, thank you to Cuba. Cuba brought PAA and AAPRP together. If we didn't go on that trip with Onya Sanwu, I don't know where our relationship would have been, but again, just expressing my gratitude, and also just appreciative of the ancestral wisdom and the continued work throughout the generations. We are still here, we are still thriving, and we're a force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sheldon?
Yeah, reiterating everything Julia said. Thank you. Thank you for everybody tuning in. Thank you for everybody trusting us, trusting our organizations, both of our organizations, to be carrying out this work. Trapa still hope. Thank you, and power to each and every one of us. Power to each and every one of everybody out there doing their parts. Yeah, it really means a lot to be able to build that solidarity between us. Shout out Oni, you know, AAPRP as well. Just a huge thank you, a huge thank you to everybody tuning in, to us doing the work, and to that solidarity.
And to Monica and Jamari for facilitating this interview.
Yes, facilitating. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. I know the comments are talking about, they're saying thank you to you all. There's been so much richness in this space, soaking it all in and learning and continuous solidarity. Thank you, Pueblo Action Alliance. Love to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are going to continue the agenda today. We have a couple different things we're going to talk about. Jamari is going to talk about some COVID-19 updates.
All right. And one thing I would like to reiterate is continue to wear your mask and continue to wash your hands. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and protecting yourself is protecting others. And yes, we would and do need the help in those areas. So if you could wear your mask, wash your hands, it would be a big help to the universe, to society. And there are 5.2 million people in this country who have passed due to coronavirus. And in the state of New Mexico, it's been up to 695 deaths. Positive cases are continually growing in prisons in this state, and nothing is being done about it. Continue being involved in work to free people behind the walls. And yes, there are many sites to get tested for coronavirus, and we will post a link in the comments. But it's cvprovider.nnhealth.org/directory. And I think Monica put in the comments right there. And if protesting, remember to get tested. Keep yourself and other communities safe.
Thank you, Jamari. So much about the pandemic is happening, and we know that Indigenous and African people are being impacted the most. And we believe in testing. Even when we're protesting, we're making sure that we're social distancing. We're also getting tested. So make sure that you're getting tested. Also, for some local organizing, we are still doing Free Clifton White. He was kidnapped from us. He is on a plantation, because that's what prisons are. And we are continuing to work to free him. He's a political prisoner. He was targeted for organizing for Black Lives because they tried to manufacture crime against 2 African young people and 2 Chicano young people. And he was there with other organizers to intervene, and he's been targeted for that. And so we're continuing to follow the Millions for Prisoners Facebook page on call to actions that they're asking us to do. So make sure to follow that. The other thing we always continuously say, even we heard that from Pueblo Action Alliance, to join an organization. Right now, we need you. The community needs you. This is not times to be on the sidelines, or organizing. So again, I think somebody said this the other day at the Red Nation event, at the Red Nation protest, last week, is that we are out organized. But we are not outnumbered, and I really believe in that. And so join an organization, find an organization that's values aligned with what you believe in. The AAPRP, you can join the community defense. And so we are an African-based only organization. Our community defense, we're making sure every weekend our elders are having access to food, having access to growing gardens. We also call and check in on them. We need your help. We also need, identifying African elders who might need support as well. You can also get involved in mutual aid. Mutual aid is seeking volunteers. They're sharing food with 60 families a day. You can visit their website as well, which we'll post in the comments. So there's ways to donate to that work. And FAM provides sing-alongs and activities. My son participates in it, and they support mothers who are involved in the revolution, and they do lots of activities. So they have activities on Sundays or Saturdays at 3 p.m. Follow their Facebook page, Families Access to Movements, and also the John Brown Breakfast Club. Every Saturday, they have been out there for quite a long time, way before mutual aid even started, way before the pandemic started, making sure people who are unsheltered or just community members have access to food. So they're out there on Saturdays at 10 a.m. on First and Silver, sharing food with the community. You can also support their work and join that. Another event happening and political education space is a Jamu show that happens on Sundays at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific time. There's lots of learning to have there. Like I just watched a show that Ajamu did around Cuba and how this country has not set up a plan to help our people. Like here in this country, and of course we're not surprised, but 5% of the population and rising are dying to COVID-19. Cuba has a 0.04 death rate because of the tactics that they are doing. So join Ajamu show, watch it. You learn so much knowledge there. In closing, we are, myself and Jamari, are the part of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. We're always recruiting for new members to join if you are African descent. Who are we, Jamari? What do we do in the AAPRP? What are some of the things that we do?
We do mutual aid, community defense. We uplift the community. We actually believe in once the most oppressed is uplifted, we are uplifted. When Africa is free, Africans everywhere will be free.
That's right. So we want you to join, and we're going to be signing off now. Thank you for joining the AAPRP today. Thank you to Pueblo Action Alliance for all the work that you do. And we want to tell you all, stay ready for the Lucian. Signing off. Thank you.
Stay ready. Y'all have a blessed day.